Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Janno.
And I'm Jyotsna Kumar. And on the show today, Pakistan has activated its SWAT and Skardu air bases amid tensions with India after the Pahalgam attack in Jammu and Kashmir. And on the other hand, as many as 509 Pakistani nationals exited India via the Attadi integrated checkpost between April 25th and 27th, while 744 Indian nationals returned from Pakistan via the Wagah in the same period. We'll bring you all the updates on that front on the show.
Also on World DNA, US President Donald Trump says he wants Russia's Vladimir Putin to stop shooting in Ukraine and sign a peace deal. And this comes just one day after the US leader met Ukraine's president at the Vatican. Trump also said on Sunday that he thought Zelensky was ready to give up Crimea. We'll bring you all the details on the Russia-Ukraine front as well. This and a lot more lined up for you. Let's start with the headlines.
Pakistan violates ceasefire across the line of control again in areas opposite Kupwara and Poonch districts. Indian troops respond swiftly and effectively.
Turkiye sends C-130 aircraft to Pakistan, reportedly carrying military equipment. Reports suggest this was part of a broader defense collaboration between the two nations.
US President Donald Trump says he thinks Volodymyr Zelensky wants to make a peace deal with Russia. Trump says Ukrainian president is ready to give up Crimea.
Canadian authorities charge suspect in the Vancouver car ramming incident with 8 counts of second-degree murder. 11 people were killed after the suspect drove his SUV into the crowd at Vancouver Filipino Festival.
President Donald Trump suggests using revenue from tariffs to reduce or eliminate income taxes for Americans earning under $200,000. Despite economic concerns and declining approval ratings, Trump is pushing for tax relief and corporate tax cuts.
Five years after COVID-19 kept them away, Liverpool fans finally packed the streets outside Anfield after winning the English Premier League. The Reds have now equalled Manchester United's tally of 20 league crowns.
We start with breaking news just coming in. Pakistani troops have resorted to firing again, violating the ceasefire along the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir.
Now, this is for the 4th consecutive night. The Indian Army said in a statement that the firing happened in areas opposite Kupwara and Poonch districts. Indian troops have responded to the firing. Once again, we repeat for you, viewers. Breaking news that has come in. Pakistani troops have resorted to firing again, violating the ceasefire along the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir, and this is for the 4th consecutive night. All right, for more on this, we are now being joined live by WION's special correspondent Idris Lone. Idris, it's the 4th consecutive night. I remember when you had told us it was soon after the Pahalgam terror attack that there was a ceasefire violation. Reports were coming in from the Poonch district, and once again we're hearing of similar reports. 4th night in a row. Give us a sense of the escalations here.
Well, absolutely. We've been seeing that from the last 4 nights. We've seen Pakistan violating the ceasefire on borders in North Kashmir as well as on the international border in Jammu. Last night also, similarly, Pakistan has violated the ceasefire with small arms firing across different areas in North Kashmir's Kupwara as well as in the Poonch district of Jammu. We've been seeing this escalation from the last 4 days, unprovoked firing taking place at different places across the line of control. However, security forces have been already put on high alert since the Pahalgam attack across LOC as well as the international border. In North Kashmir, we've seen there was also an infiltration bid just very next day of the Pahalgam attack in which 2 militants were killed. Their bodies were recovered and arms and ammunition was recovered from them as well. This is also shown a period when we see that there is a rise in the infiltration bids because the snow starts melting on the mountains and the pathways for the militant groups basically become clearer, and that this is the time when we see that there is an increase, and this is exactly and we've also seen that Pakistani army helping them to cross, and one of the helps that they provide is involved in this ceasefire violation, firing with the Indian army so that the militant groups can basically enter into Kashmir territory. On the other hand, we've seen that multiple operations of security forces are being carried out in different districts of Jammu and Kashmir as well. We've seen that 3 encounters that are still going on, the search operations at 3 places still going on from the last 4 to 5 days. There have been multiple raids on the houses of the over-the-ground workers. Over 100 raids have been witnessed in Srinagar. Only we've seen thousands of arrests. Over 2,500 people were detained after the Pahalgam attack. So security forces basically in Jammu and Kashmir not leaving any stone unturned to nab the attackers of the Pahalgam attack. Meanwhile, the line of control and international border brimming as well.
Right, and you say that the escalation has been, we see that from the Pakistani side as well. Reports do say that Pakistan has activated its SWAT and Skardu air bases amid the tensions with India. Is there anything that you can bring in on that point as well?
Well, yes, it seems to be a response also of Pakistani army showing that, because after the attack that happened in Pahalgam, we've seen Pakistani army moving their arms and ammunition along the line of control, especially in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. We've seen a lot of these things happening since the last 4 days. But if we talk about the timing of this, it's very important that 2 things. One is the Pahalgam attack for sure that has led to this escalation on the line of control. But we also have to see that this is also the time when the militant groups are activated and sent across to the Kashmir region as well as in the Jammu division. We've seen a lot of infiltration bids taking place across the international border in the last 6 to 7 months. North Kashmir was a little bit quiet in at least last 1 or 1.5 years. But we've seen that there also there have been inputs that the militant groups across the border will try to infiltrate into Kashmir territory. And that is one of the reasons we've seen security being beefed up all across.
Yes.
And whenever there is a firing incident, whenever there is a ceasefire violation from the Pakistan army, it's being retaliated.
All right, Idris, thanks so much for getting us the latest. These developments are coming in very frequently and we will be tracking them with you on ground. Now, Pakistan has reportedly activated its key air bases in the Northern Command, including the SWAT and Skardu.
Now, this comes amid escalating tensions with India following the terror attack in Jammu and Kashmir's Pahalgam district that killed 26 people. Reports say the Pakistan Air Force were seen conducting sorties involving fighter jets.
Now, this as the country conducts exercises called Zarb-e-Haidari in the Southern Air Command. Pakistan's Southern Command, viewers, it stretches across 5 major military bases, with 4 of them in the strategic Sindh province alone. Sindh shares over 900 kilometers of land border with India, and it also connects with the Indian state of Gujarat through the Arabian Sea, making it a crucial point in case of any kind of escalation between the neighboring countries. Fighter jets like the US-made F-16, the Chinese-built JF-17 and J-10C, they are expected to participate in the ongoing 3-day-long air warfare exercise.
Now, Pakistan has also airlifted heavy loads of ammunition to southern bases using C-130 aircraft. Half of Pakistan's J-10C fleet, along with F-16s, has been forwarded to this sector, with a special focus on defending Karachi and boosting combat readiness.
Moreover, sources say that a Turkish Air Force C-130 has arrived in Karachi carrying war equipment as part of a broader defense collaboration between the two nations. In addition to the Karachi delivery, sources say 6 Turkish C-130 planes landed at a military base in Islamabad. Turkish military support complements similar aid from China.
According to sources, PL-15 missiles have freshly arrived from China. PL-15 has a maximum range of 200 kilometers. That is double than that of older PL-12 systems. Now, during the 2019 air skirmishes, China had rushed PL-12 missiles to Pakistan. And this time, the PL-15s are set to arm the entire fleet of JF-17C aircraft.
India remains undeterred with Rafales, Sukhoi 30 MKIs and state-of-the-art missile systems on high alert. New Delhi has already made it clear any misadventure by Pakistan will be met with overwhelming force.
All right, now shifting our focus to West Asia, Gaza authorities claim that at least 17 Palestinians, including women and children, were killed in Israeli strikes on Sunday.
And this comes a day after Israeli strikes on tents sheltering displaced people killed at least 40 Palestinians. In Khan Yunis, Israeli strikes hit a tent, killing 8 people, including a mother and her 5 children.
Deir al-Bala, a separate strike hit a tent and killed 4 children and a man. A second strike hit a group of people in the street, killing 4 people.
These are their targets, children playing in the street, not throwing rockets or even knowing what factions mean. How long? And here we are paying the price every day.
A ceasefire between Hamas and Israel still remains elusive. Qatar's Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani has said that Hamas was ready to release all hostages, but under conditions that Israel probably would not accept.
Hamas are ready to give all the hostages back in exchange of number of prisoners, but with conditions that probably Israel not accepting, and Israel focusing on the hostages without a clear end for the war.
With Israel continuing with its military offensive and aid blockage, the United Nations has warned that residents in Gaza are slowly dying. The UN has flagged a sharp surge in malnutrition in the Gaza Strip as food supplies experience a sharp decline. According to the UN, the coming days in Gaza would be critical.
Everyone is suffering from malnutrition, especially the children. What are the children eating? They spend all day standing in line at the food kitchen to get rice or beans, and sometimes there is none. We take a plate of beans and keep it for the next day. But now the weather doesn't allow it, and if we wait, it will spoil. We can't.
In neighboring Lebanon, Israel claimed it struck a Hezbollah missile warehouse in capital Beirut and issued evacuation orders. Smoke could be seen rising over Beirut's southern suburbs following the Israeli strike.
The strikes prompted Lebanese President Joseph Aoun to call on France and the United States to intervene to halt the attacks and preserve a fragile truce with Israel. The strikes add to strains on the US brokered ceasefire that ended last year's devastating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. And Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has ordered a thorough investigation to find the causes of the explosion at the country's biggest port of Bandar Abbas on Saturday.
Now, the death toll in the blast at the key southern port has climbed to 40, while the number of injured is over 1,000. A statement by Khamenei said security and judicial officials are obliged to thoroughly investigate, uncover any negligence or intent, and follow up in accordance with regulations.
An Iranian Defense Ministry statement says there was no military cargo at the explosion site on the Shahid Rajai port on Saturday, while the exact cause of the explosion is yet to be established. Local authorities said the fire broke out at the hazardous and chemical materials storage depot that probably blew up several containers.
Now, meanwhile, President Pezeshkian conducted an aerial survey of the ground zero at Shahid Rajai port in Bandar Abbas. Earlier, Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered several emergency planes to be sent to Iran to help extinguish the blaze in the port of Bandar Abbas.
Necessary orders have been given to the health minister and other officials, and they are following up on the problems and working vigorously to resolve them. I hope we can resolve the issues as soon as possible, and God willing, we'll definitely do so.
The intense explosion at the port was heard about 50 kilometers away. Located more than 1,000 kilometers south of Tehran, the Shahid Rajai port is a strategically significant maritime hub in Iran.
Now, the port is one of Iran's largest and most vital shipping hubs. It handles over 55% of the country's non-oil imports and exports and manages over 85% of Iran's container cargo.
The explosion occurred in the backdrop of the third round of talks between Iran and US delegations in Oman on Saturday. Both sides reported progress in the high-level talks on Iran's nuclear program. US President Donald Trump has said that he thinks Volodymyr Zelensky is ready to give up Crimea.
Absolutely. Now, Trump's comment directly contradicts the Ukrainian leader's statement so far on the peninsula annexed by Russia in 2014. Trump and Zelensky, who were both in Rome for the funeral of Pope Francis, met in a Vatican basilica on Saturday. The meeting came at a critical time in negotiations aimed at bringing an end to the conflict.
Is Zelensky ready to give up Crimea, do you think, Mr. President?
Oh, I think so, yeah. Look, Crimea was 12 years ago. That was President Obama. They gave it up without a shot being fired. So don't talk to me about Crimea. Talk to Obama and Biden about Crimea.
Trump also had a message for Vladimir Putin. Trump said he wants Putin to stop shooting in Ukraine and sign a peace deal in response to a question on what he wanted from Putin.
Vladimir Putin to do? Well, I want him to stop shooting, sit down and sign a deal. And we have the confines of a deal, I believe, and I want him to sign it and be done with it and just go back to life.
Trump has called for Russia to stop shooting recently, talking of potential repercussions. U.S. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz has said that President Trump intends to use both carrots and sticks to push forward negotiations between Russia and Ukraine.
Well, you saw also in that truth, Maria, that he talked about potential action on banking, potential action on the oil and gas sector, but he's determined to use both carrots and sticks to get both sides to the table in direct talks, talking about those items that we discussed to drive this to a permanent end with European-led security architecture.
The Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has reiterated that Crimea was not being discussed in the negotiations with Ukraine. Talking to CBS News, Lavrov said that Crimea is a done deal and Russia does not negotiate its own territory.
President Trump said Crimea is not even being discussed right now.
Yes, because this is a done deal.
You mean Russia occupies and controls and will not negotiate the future of Crimea? Is that what you're saying?
Russia do not negotiate its own territory.
Meanwhile, Russia said it has fully regained control of the Kursk region, a claim immediately disputed by the Ukrainian side. Russian Chief of the General Staff Valery Gerasimov made the declaration in his report to President Vladimir Putin, saying Russian troops liberated the last settlement under Ukrainian control on Friday.
Ukrainian army has denied Russia's claim, saying it does not correspond to reality. Zelensky has also claimed that Ukrainian troops are continuing to fight in the Kursk and Belgorod regions. North Korea has confirmed for the first time that it had in fact deployed troops to Russia. State news agency KCNA has reported now that its soldiers helped Moscow reclaim territory in Kursk. South Korea and Western intelligence agencies have long reported that Pyongyang sent more than 10,000 soldiers to help in Kursk last year.
Moving on, as Canada's federal general election nears, the political landscape has undergone a dramatic shift, with recent polling showing a tight race between the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party following several months of political and economic turbulence.
At the start of the year, the Conservatives under the leadership of Pierre Poilievre held a commanding lead in the polls. At one point, they led the Liberals by more than 20 points.
We are voting for change because we love this country and we want every single person to have the promise of Canada, that anyone who works hard can have a great life in a beautiful, affordable home on a safe street under our proud flag. That's the change we need. That's the hope we offer. Now let's vote to bring it home.
However, now the political dynamic seems to have shifted, with Mark Carney replacing Justin Trudeau as the Liberal Party leader. The former governor of the Bank of Canada and prominent international economist has played a pivotal role in regaining support for the Liberals.
It's a time for serious leadership. It's a time to come together and unite as a country, because we need to fight, we need to protect, and we need to build. We need to fight Trump's tariffs with counter tariffs of our own that cause maximum damage in the United States with minimum impact here. We need to protect our workers using every single dollar we collect from those tariffs.
The swing in voter sentiment is likely influenced by several factors, including economic uncertainty and rising concerns about Canada's sovereignty, particularly in the wake of the tariff dispute with the United States.
She was pretty obvious, and it's obvious the reason the polls have shifted so much over the past few months, and it's what's happening just on the other side of the lake there, south of the border.
Although the race is now much closer, latest surveys show the Liberals have made significant strides, particularly in urban centres like Toronto, where external factors seem to have been key in reversing the political tide.
It has to do with what's happening in our economics internationally, and I think it's also important that we're pulling together and bringing a new strength to Canada across our provinces.
Support for Canada's other major parties, including the New Democratic Party NDP and the Bloc Québécois, has been declining, with voters increasingly consolidating their support behind either the Liberals or Conservatives. One of the biggest questions here heading into the final moments of the campaign is whether these shifting dynamics will lead to higher voter turnout. According to Election Canada, 7.3 million took part in early polls.
Going to be a good sign for Canada and for the health of our democracy if people come out and vote. You see much more people embracing their Canadianness and making sure that they're buying Canadian. And so I think voting is just part of that. And if people see that and voting as being part of being Canadian, I think we could see a significant increase in voter turnout.
As we approach Election Day on April 28th, all eyes will be on voter turnout and whether the shifting political winds will continue to favor the Liberals or if the Conservatives will regain lost ground. And well, it's now time for a really quick break, but don't go anywhere. On the other side of World DNA, India and France are set to formally sign the $7 billion deal to buy 26 Rafale Marine fighter jets. The Indian Navy will acquire 26 jets as part of the agreement. More on the other side.
When we come back, Liverpool have been crowned the champions of England. The Reds clinch the title in style with a
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
Imagine a world where owning your dream asset is just a click away, where wealth is no longer exclusive to the few. Tokenization, the game changer, transforming assets into digital opportunities. A revolutionary technology opening doors to a new era of investment. Don't miss Token Money Magnet, a bold initiative by Kalp Foundation. Only on WION World is One.
WION, India's global voice. The channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching World DNA with Jyotsna and I'm Shivan. Lots more to discuss. Let's start with the headlines.
Sources say Indian security forces located the Pahalgam attackers at least 4 times during search operations in the last 5 days and once even exchanged fire with them.
Pakistan violates ceasefire across the line of control again in areas opposite Kupwara and Poonch districts. Indian troops respond swiftly and effectively.
Turkiye sends C-130 aircraft to Pakistan, reportedly carrying military equipment. Reports suggest this was part of a broader defense collaboration between the two nations.
Crimea was 12 years ago. That was President Obama. They gave it up without a shot being fired. So don't talk to me about Crimea. Talk to Obama and Biden about Crimea.
US President Trump says he thinks Zelensky wants to make a peace deal with Russia. Trump says Ukrainian president is ready to give up Crimea.
Canadian authorities charge suspects in the Vancouver car ramming incident with 8 counts of second-degree murder. 11 people were killed after the suspect drove his SUV into the crowd at Vancouver Filipino Festival.
Chinese fast fashion retailer Shen raises prices for US shoppers in response to higher import tariffs. American customers now pay significantly more than their UK counterparts, with sharp increases across beauty, home and toy categories.
Five years after COVID-19 kept them away, Liverpool fans finally packed the streets outside Anfield after winning the English Premier League title. The Reds have now equaled Manchester United's tally of 20 league crowns. All right, breaking news coming in. According to reports, Indian security forces located the Pahalgam attackers at least 4 times in different spots over the past 5 days.
And this is a huge development, Jyotsna. They even came very close to cornering them in the forests of South Kashmir. And on one such occasion, even exchanged fire with them. As per the report, the terrorists were located through information obtained from local residents, intelligence inputs and combing operations. This is an absolute big breakthrough.
And forces have been carrying out a massive search operations, including the dense forest, and have been engaged with other groups as well in their crackdown.
Just repeating it for our viewers, Indian security forces located the Pahalgam attackers at least 4 times in different spots over the past 5 days. They even came very close to cornering them in the forests of South Kashmir.
And this is after they had there were explosions of these, where they were residing, all these properties, the terrorist properties, they had been demolished during that time. Now, of course, for more on this, we are being joined live by WION's special correspondent, Idris Lone. He's on the phone line with us. Idris, this is breaking coming in. What is more that you can bring us?
Well, it's been 7 days since the Pahalgam attack took place, and since then, security forces in huge numbers have been carrying out multiple search operations across Jammu as well as Kashmir division. If we talk about the Pahalgam in South Kashmir, we've seen massive combing operation that started exactly right after the attack by Jammu and Kashmir Police, Indian Army and paramilitary forces. The search operation still continues, as I as the Pahalgam Baisaran meadow is covered with dense forest, and that's where the militants basically went into hiding after attacking the civilian population at the Baisaran. Let me tell you that there have been multiple instances where security forces have come in close contact with these militants hiding in the forest area of South Kashmir. And at one instance in Hapatar village in Anantnag, Pahalgam Tehsil, we have seen that there was exchange of fire between these militants and security forces. Our sources tell us that this could be the same group that carried out the attack in the Baisaran area. We've also seen not only in Pahalgam but also across South Kashmir in districts like Kurgam, Shupian and Pulwama, which is very close to Anantnag district. Security forces have been carrying out massive search operations there as well. We also saw an operation taking place in Kulgam where there was a brief gunfight between security forces as well and militants there as well. So it seems that security forces did come very close to the basically to the attackers of the Pahalgam attack, but have not been able to hold them at one place. It's a dense forest. It's a very deep, dense forest, and that's one of the reasons we're seeing that these militants are taking advantage of and managing to hide in those dense forests. But security forces now have brought in commandos from both Indian Army as well as the paramilitary forces. They've started from day one only using the choppers, drones to locate the hiding militants.
Yes, Idris.
A little bit difficult task for them, but we are sure that they'll get them soon.
Yeah, Idris, now going by, the breaking that has just come in, that 4 encounters, close encounters in different spots over the past 5 days. It only seems that the Indian forces are just inches away from nabbing all of those terrorists. But at this point, you mentioned briefly that they were found in a village. There was gunfire in a village in Pahalgam, which is suspected to be with the same terrorist group. If you can shed some more light on what that location is, would that mean that these terrorists are still loitering around and roaming around within Pahalgam and in those forests?
Well, Shyam, it's a very dense terrain, and the Hapadnar area also is in the same district, in the Anantnag district only, and the mountain range is connected. And these militants could have easily gone towards Hapadnar after carrying out the Pahalgam attack. That's why we're not seeing the combing operation taking place only at Baisaran where the attack took place, but across the mountain range which connects the South Kashmir to other adjacent districts as well. At one place in Hapadnar, we've seen that there was a brief exchange of fire between the militants and security forces, but from that location also militants managed to flee. There have been 3 more instances where security forces have come close to the militant groups, but at those locations there was no gunfight, but there was gunfight between them at one location. It's an extremely dense forest area where security forces might take some more time basically to locate these militants, but since they've come in contact so many times already with them, it seems they're not really long enough from cornering them at one of the places. The militant group does seem to be in South Kashmir for sure at the moment, as per sources in the security forces. That's why we've seen these operations being intensified in the last
definitely, as you've mentioned and you've stressed enough, Idris, that it's a very, very dense forest. That is what the Indian security forces are dealing with. Our special correspondent Idris Sloan getting us the latest on that, and this latest report only claims that the Indian forces have made contact with these terrorists. There has been exchange of fire several times over the past 5 days, at least 4 times. Big development coming in. They're inches away from getting those terrorists. With tensions rising in South Asia, China is calling upon both India and Pakistan to exercise restraint and move towards de-escalating tensions in the aftermath of the Pahalgam terror attack.
Now, the Chinese suggestion came during a call between Foreign Minister Wang Yi and Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister Ishaq Dar. In urging an impartial investigation into the attack, China has also also said that Pakistan's Prime Minister remarks in the immediate aftermath of the Pahalgam attack, reiterating the earlier call by Pakistan's Prime Minister. Pakistan's Defense Minister Khwaja Asif said China, Russia and Western countries can participate in an impartial investigation on Pahalgam terrorist attack.
The suggestions come close on the heels of Pakistan reportedly working with China to dilute the wording of the UNSC condemnation of the Pahalgam terror attack. The UNSC condemnation called for global cooperation to bring those behind the reprehensible act of terrorism to justice. But unlike its 2019 statement after the Pulwama attack that urged countries to work directly with the government of India, this time the Council referred more broadly to all relevant parties, all relevant authorities, without naming India.
The report suggests that Islamabad was concerned about the direct mention of the Indian government as it could hand New Delhi diplomatic leverage on investigation. Pakistan and China also share deep defense ties. Between 2019 and 2023, Pakistan accounted for 80% Chinese defense exports. This week, Beijing supplied Islamabad with PL-15 long-range air-to-air missiles.
China and India also share a disputed border that witnesses skirmishes every now and then. China has historically avoided direct involvement in any India and Pakistan dispute, but the close ties between Islamabad and Beijing raise a lot of questions. What role will China play in an active India-Pakistan conflict? That's a question that has arisen several times, at least since the Pahalgam terror attack.
All right, well, India and France are set to formally sign the $7 billion deal to buy 26 Rafale Marine fighter jets.
This will clear the way for the Indian Navy to acquire 22 single-seater and 4 twin-seater aircraft as part of the agreement. Negotiated with France under a government-to-government framework, the deal was in the works for several years and was approved by India's Cabinet Committee on Security on the 9th of April. Under the contract, France will also be supplying India with advanced weapon systems and other support infrastructure along with the aircraft. The purchase of Rafale M jets will significantly increase the capability of the Indian Navy as the carrier-capable fighters are intended to be deployed on board the INS Vikrant aircraft carrier, replacing the aging fleet of Russian MiG-29K jets. The Rafale Marine is the naval variant of the standard Rafale jet, 2 squadrons of which are operated by India for land-based operations.
Both the IAF's Rafale and Rafale's M are equipped with an active scanned array as radar. Both variants are also equipped with the same Theo Spectra internal electronic warfare system, which is also optimized for maritime operations on the Rafale M. Both jets share a common weapons package, including Meteor and Mika long-range air-to-air missile, Hammer air-to-surface standoff weapon, Scalp long-range standoff missile, and laser-guided bombs.
Now, it features new modifications like reinforced undercarriage and landing gear, a tail hook, and foldable wings. It also has jump strut nose wheel that makes catapult launch possible and is compatible for operations on Indian aircraft carriers equipped with the Stobar system.
The deal was originally meant to be signed by French Defense Minister Sébastien Lecornu's visit to New Delhi. However, now it will be signed virtually after the postponement of French Defense Minister's trip. The Rafale M jets are expected to be delivered within 27 to 65 months, following the signing of the contracts, with all the jets slated for delivery between 2030 and 2032.
Dassault Aviation, which manufactures the Rafale multi-role fighter jet, has ramped up its production since the year 2020. Dassault CEO Eric Trappier last month said that the production output went from 1 warplane a month in 2020 to more than 2 per month this year, adding that the company was working with suppliers to be able to produce fighter jets even faster. And tensions in the South China Sea are flaring up. US and Philippines have conducted a series of high-stakes military exercises in Zambales province, located just a few hundred miles from the disputed South China Sea.
Now, in a show of force, US and Philippine forces teamed up in an annual Balikatan exercises, which saw over 9,000 American and 5,000 Filipino personnel taking part. The drills also involved 260 Australian troops, simulated combat scenarios to improve coordination and readiness between the two nations.
The thunder of missiles streaking across the sky and the echo of anti-aircraft fire rolled across the coast of Zambales over the weekend as Philippine and US troops also launched a high-intensity air and missile defense drill.
The location of these drills is particularly significant as Zambales lies directly across from South China Sea, a region increasingly dominated by Chinese territorial claims. The drills come amid rising tensions in the region, particularly around Taiwan. The U.S. has been strengthening its military alliances in the Indo-Pacific, with the Philippines playing a key role.
The US military has also deployed anti-ship missile launchers on Bataan Island, just south of Taiwan. This underscores the strategic importance of the Bashi Channel, a vital maritime route for both trade and military operations.
That's something, our treaty obligations, that's the longest treaty obligation in the Pacific. That's something we always take seriously. For the United States Marine Corps, we've never left the Pacific. Even when we were fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan, we've never left the Pacific.
For China, these exercises and deployments are seen as provocative actions in what it considers its territorial waters. The Chinese government has sharply criticized the maneuvers, viewing them as part of a broader U.S. strategy to counter its growing influence in the region.
Early this month, the Chinese military staged large-scale drills in the waters around Taiwan and renewed a warning to the self-ruled democracy not to seek independence. Chinese Navy, air, ground and rocket forces staged these drills. Now, for several months, the Philippines has been locked in a series of tense confrontations with Beijing over disputed territories in the South China Sea. Since President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. took office in the year 2022, Manila has steadily deepened its defense cooperation with the United States, pushing back against China's sweeping maritime claims.
Well, there's a lot of economic data due this week. A lot of it won't look good. But does that mean an imminent recession?
Well, in this next report, we dive into the clues investors will look for in the week ahead. Take a look.
What's the probability of a US recession? Those bets have seesawed in line with market moves this year. While trade uncertainty is still soaring, a recession is not a high conviction call at the moment. Even if media reports turn out to be true and China and the US roll back, some of the tariffs on each other, the trade rates will still look uneconomical. It's not looked great since the immediate aftermath of COVID. Back then, when the manufacturing surveys started to fall, talk of a recession began to rise rapidly. Yet the economy powered on regardless. It was a reminder that manufacturing isn't the dominant economic force in the US that it once was. Consumers powered the economy post-COVID. But with savings and confidence down and delinquencies up, the consumer is not positioned to absorb the costs of supply chain disruption this time around. In Asia, investors will track what the Bank of Japan does, and more importantly, the tone of the central bank will dictate yen moves. In broader markets, a dollar gauge marked its worst performance during the first 100 days of a US presidency in data going back to the Nixon era, when America abandoned the gold standard. But treasuries rallied as investors pinned their hopes to signs that the US-China trade confrontation may be starting to cool. There was also some pleasant news in equities towards late last week. But will that last? Much will depend on the course of US-China policies. Business Bureau, WION World is one.
And over to sports, Liverpool have been crowned the champions of England. The Reds clinched the title in style with a commanding 5-1 win over Tottenham Hotspur. Liverpool have now equalled Manchester United's record of 20 top-flight titles.
Now they have reclaimed their place on the perch. Liverpool only needed a draw against the Spurs to seal the league, and fans began gathering long before kickoff. They thronged the streets around Anfield, buzzing with anticipation of a title celebration. The supporters were chanting and setting off red flares as the team bus rolled past. The Reds got off to a rocky start. Former Liverpool forward Dominic.
The title was signed and sealed when Alexis McAllister put Liverpool ahead. Destiny turned the ball into his own net to complete the route. Liverpool wrapped up.
He's left it with the cameraman now, and that is the shot that they all want, and that is the moment.
Very, very happy, of course, but to a certain extent also quite unreal. Because you've worked so hard for this moment to happen, and when it then does happen, it needs some time for you to truly feel it. But the fans were